There are days that define your story beyond your life.
Welcome to 5 Minute Arrival,
the podcast where we look at the film Arrival 5 minutes at a time. I'm Robert.
I'm Sarah.
Any questions?
What do they want? Where are they from? Why are they here? This is the priority.
Our priorities today. Minutes 96 to 100 of Arrival, which begin with Hannah finishing her question, I am unstoppable. And we have a guest, Austin Pryor of Malkovich Minute.
You got it in one.
I did have to look that up again. I couldn't remember the title.
So my name is Austin. I've yet to release a single episode of Malkovich Minute, but I've recorded 10 episodes so far, and it's all going nicely, and I'm currently in the mire of editing. But it's a really enjoyable project, and it has gotten me into the Movies by Minute community, and now I'm a guest on 5 Minute Arrival, so fantastic.
Yeah.
So this is the zenith of my podcasting career now. I'm peaking early.
Yes. Yeah. That's what you do. Peak right away, and then no one expects anything from you anymore.
Well, hi and welcome.
Louise says yeah to Hannah being unstoppable, and they hug, and the camera lingers there, and then we cut to Ian and Louise, and as Ian is catching her and says, I got you, she is a little out of it. She says, Louise. And she says, I just realized why my husband left me. They've been working together for like 37 days at this point, 38, I forget what the last count was. And he's like, you were married? He doesn't know this.
You will be married?
Yeah. And let's get out of here. And he helps her into the truck. And we get a little sequence of shots of the Montana shell. And there's helicopters flying around. We cut to, I believe it's this shell in the Sudan, because the news labels are in Arabic. They say live broadcast and breaking news. Mm-hmm. Thank you, Google Translate. But the coordinates for the site should be more outside the city, and it's a very dry location, so I don't know where they're shooting this. The gas station doesn't have enough detail to figure it out. But it's not in Sudan. Mm. And that shell, just like the one in Montana, has moved horizontal and is very low. It's hitting the power lines. So people are freaking out. And in this case, justifiably. Electricity is dangerous. And then we cut to what I assume is the Siberia location because of the snow. That shell is also lowering, and there's multiple tanks and some sort of missile launcher aiming at it. We get a shot of the shell off Shanghai. It's dark there, which these shots are correct for their light and dark because of time zones.
Oh, of course.
Basically, sun just went down in Siberia, so it's just after sunset in Shanghai. And then we cut to, there's a gun on a ship turning toward it, and we cut to a helicopter rising in front of what I thought was another shell, but then I looked it up, and this is a CAIC-10. That's a Chang'e Aircraft Industries Corporation, so this is still China, or at least it's a Chinese helicopter. And then we cut to inside the helicopter, and this helicopter and a couple others are flying toward the shell. So this is like an active possible attack about to happen. Even more of a war situation than I was thinking watching this before. I don't know why I didn't notice that. These helicopters are going directly at the shell. And then we cut back to Louise. And the helicopter sounds fade, and Hannah says, Mama. Louise says, yeah, and Hannah asks, why is my name Hannah? And we cut back and forth here between Louise in the orange walkway at the base, and here's some other voices talking, and then Louise answers and says, well, your name is very special because it is a palindrome. It reads the same forward and backward. And
this scene ensures that everybody who maybe didn't know what's happening yet will know for sure.
Yes. Yeah, this is the active part.
Yeah.
Regarding palindromic names, I would like to say there are apparently, I found a website that listed 139 across multiple cultures and countries.
Most of them 3 letters, I bet.
Yes.
Bob and...
Some interesting ones. FA, EFE is West African, means wealth. EC, ISI is Choctaw Native American, means deer. Canuck is Sanskrit, means gold. K-N-A-K. Oh. Muram, M-A-R-A-M, Arabic for wish. Noon is Arabic for sword blade. Pip, English for friend of horses. And there's a variation of willow, which is spelled W-I-L-L-I-W.
Oh.
There's some more basic ones that people would know. Ada, Anna, Ava, Elle, Asa, Bob, Otto. But the more interesting thing than names was that I found, this is a Finnish word. Let me pronounce this correctly. Saipua pivikaupius, which is the longest palindrome word in everyday use. It is the name of a soap vendor in Finland.
Okay, so it's like constructed as a palindrome, as a brand name, rather than...
Yeah.
I mean, it still counts. It's still a word,
Yeah.
but it's not like, it just didn't crop up naturally in language.
But it is like 20 letters long, so that's pretty cool.
That's impressive.
I didn't go through the whole list of 139 names because that would take a long time. But if you Google it, you can find them. We go back to the blue tent, and we are behind Louise as she's kind of walking calmly, and everyone else is packing quickly and running around. We see Ian walking along too, hear a bunch of voices, and Halpern is in there telling people what to do. Cut in front of Louise as she leaves that tent, goes to her tent, because you can see her isolation tent inside it is where she's directing. And she goes to the computer. We see a flash forward to her cutting open a box, and then her at the computer. There's chaos all around her opening up the box with bubble wrap, and taking out a book, The Universal Language by Dr. Louise Banks. Unfortunately, I couldn't read the back, so I don't know any of the bio they made up for her character. Or what the book...
Lorem ipsum.
Yeah, maybe. A lot of the text on props in this movie are unreadable, and it bothers me because I obsess. Back to her at the computer in the present, and then her in the book, and she opens it to the dedication, which says, to Hannah. And then Ian approaches in the present, says, hey, we're done here. We're taking this with us. And she closes her eyes so we can see, as Sarah said, this is the moment where we see what's really going on. She's thinking about this future moment to get stuff out of it, and she thinks ahead. So we go from the book turning to the title page, which has the logogram for time that is on all the lists that you can find, but it is not the one for time that was in the rest of the movie, annoyingly. This one is actually never in the film other than here, and not translated. But we got a different one in minute 55. This is, we see the full title, The Universal Language, Translating Heptapod, a Handbook. And then we see Louise in the present. She opens her eyes and scrolls through the logogram cloud on the computer to, unfortunately, repetition again, just like I mentioned last time. Abbott, Heptapod. Louise has weapon with another Abbott off to the side. And then we see her in a classroom in the future teaching people Heptapod. Mm-hmm. The logogram on the screen is the one that translates on the usual list as Heptapod writes real time, which this is the one that Abbott wrote in minute 56. We don't actually know what it means. And then we see Louise in a different classroom with the class behind her, and she's looking at the screen, which if she doesn't have a microphone, I would say this is really bad lecturing. And I don't see a microphone because she's got her back to the audience.
So the microphones are very discreet. Tucked away.
She has an alien microphone.
Yeah.
There is a screen at the back of the room, though, which is interesting. So she really doesn't even have to face the front. She could just face the back. And she highlights part of that logogram and, continues. We don't hear any of what she's saying because it's just a quick flash. In the present, Louise tells Ian, I can read it. I know what it is. And she stands up. Ian says, what? Louise says, it's not a weapon. It's a gift. We hear her start to talk to Weber before we cut outside. She says, the weapon is their language. They gave it all to us. Do you understand what that means? And Weber says, so we can learn Heptapod. If we survive. Very pragmatic.
He takes it very literally.
Yeah.
But the overall theme here, which is kind of cliche, is that the ability to communicate is the gift. And the question is, if the communication is how we're shifting or perceiving time, being able to see around corners, is that ultimately good or not?
If we could all do it, it's good. If only certain people have access to it, then it's problematic.
Are we looking at a dystopia where all the linguistic scholars and all the people who are, neurotypically attuned to or predisposed to this kind of learning are able to just unlock this secret and the rest of it? So it creates a two-tier society.
Yeah, and the language is already institutionalized in the sense that we see with her book and her teaching, there's like this focus on individual success that she gains from learning this language. And it's being gatekept in this university setting. So only people who have access to that type of learning are learning it. So
yeah.
And then Americans are going to be screwed because we don't learn second languages on a regular basis until we have to.
The ones at elite universities.
Well, that's what I mean. Until you're at school, like college, they make you, and then if you're at a good university, you'll do it really well. Or if you go to a good school.
But Americans buy self-help books, I think, ahead of anybody else.
Heptapod B for dummies.
Yeah.
Well, or if this is like The Secret, because this book has far greater potential to change your brain and your perception of yourself and your life than any other self-help book.
Yeah.
Plus, if you start learning it, if you will ever learn it, you're given a helping hand by your future self as it starts to work.
Yeah.
The harder you work, the faster your learning accelerates. So if you're in any way adept at it, maybe it's not that hard to learn. Maybe you don't need to go to college. Maybe your future memories start bleeding in early, reasonably early into let's say halfway through the book. And then the pace of learning really flies. Because there's a little bit of a fudge here in the movie, which I don't mind at all from a storytelling point of view. But for our purposes of breaking everything down and destroying the film, it works perfectly. Which is that she's getting these cognitive memories from the future. She's experiencing memories from the future as if they're memories from the past. Yeah. And that's obviously a device in terms of the storytelling and the fake out that is now being revealed in these minutes. But also, it seems to be what's actually happening. And the story seems to be committing to this idea that the visions of her future are something that she's experiencing subjectively in much the same way as you experience cognitive memory.
Yeah.
But language is a very different type of memory. When I remember the word for horse, when I recognize a horse and know the word for horse, I'm not remembering that time I learned the word horse as a little baby, True. So she's not accessing these memories when she accesses the language. She's accessing a body of knowledge that she will have in the future, which maybe that is allowed because it unlocks your future self. It unlocks everything you will ever know, but it does seem to create a bit of a problem for the story.
That's if we assume we understand how it works. Because the presentation it can't differentiate because it's visual.
Yeah.
We're seeing her future memories the same way we would see past memories in a movie. And so we assume the process is similar. And the way she describes it in the original story, it is similar.
And in the original story, does her knowledge come back in that way, come like backwards in time to her present moment?
Not as explicitly, because the story is told in pieces, so she'll tell a part of the future, tell a part of the past, and it just kind of, you get the sense of it as it goes, because it blends together.
Okay.
Because it's prose. It's a different medium.
And if you learned this skill, you would also need to learn some coping mechanisms for it, because think about experiencing everything that you've ever experienced, even on some level. Time isn't linear. So every pain you've ever had, you're experiencing at the same time. Every joy you've ever had, you're experiencing at the same time. There could be a good reason why, as humans, we experience things linearly.
It would be especially horrible if something bad is going to happen to you soon, because that memory would be fresh, and you might not want to keep learning.
Like Costello when he's getting jittery before the bomb. Or is it Abbott?
Abbott's the one that dies.
Yeah.
Yeah, because, if you find out something far in your future, it'd be like something far in your past. It might not be as painful or as sharp. But if you find out, your parents are going to die next week in a car accident, you're like, yeah, I don't want to keep reading this.
Yeah. And I know the moral is that if you choose love, if you choose a relationship, if you choose, for example, to have a child, if you choose to take a risk at something, that it can go horribly wrong. And the idea is that even having that as a potential outcome, maybe not a known outcome, that you do that anyway so that you live, because the experience of having that love for a short time is better than not having it at all, or being a parent for a shorter is better than not being a parent at all.
It reminds me of another couple who had foreknowledge of how their relationship was going to break down, and that'd be Joel and Clementine.
Of
Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, because they're the last scene of the movie, spoilers for a 12-year-old movie or whatever it is. I'll get bored and you'll get clingy or whatever it is.
Okay.
Really?
I'm not a concept, Joel. I'm just a fucked up girl who's looking for my own peace of mind. I'm not perfect.
I can't see anything that I don't like about you.
But you
will.
Right
now I can't.
But you will. You will think of things. And I'll get bored with you and feel trapped, because that's what happens with me.
Okay.
Okay. Okay.
That's what I do and that's what you do. And Joel just kind of says, okay.
Yeah.
And they just realize that they're going to go and do it. It's a very different kind of foreknowledge and hopefully they can work on their relationship and they won't make all exactly the same mistakes this time. But the movie certainly just allows us to kind of sit with that and say, yeah, I'm willing to take the rough with the smooth.
And the movie leaves it open so that there's a chance they could do it better this time. Unlike the script where they've been doing it badly over and over and over and just keep erasing each other.
I forgot about that. I read it. I read the script years ago. Yeah.
And that would be the difference in Eternal Sunshine. There's that potential, there's that hope that things could go differently. But in this case, is it a good thing? Because you already know how it's going to go. You already know how it's going to end, and you're choosing to do it anyway. So there's not really like a hope component. There's not like a we can do this better component. It's here's everything that ever existed and currently exists, and this is the way that it exists. Now choose it or not.
Maybe it's just like...
Well, there's no or not.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. There is. You could always, I mean, not to be super graphic, you can always choose to not continue living your life. There's always an out. Play or exit. But
yeah, but technically under this system you couldn't, though, unless that was what you knew was going to happen.
Yeah, you would know that would be the day you would die in advance. But maybe it's just like other steps up the hierarchy of needs, where, to put it glibly, more money, more problems. So that like it's when you get up to the next level, your problems become different. Your life is generally easier. You're not scrounging for, the basics. You have your shelter and your food, and you're not worried about where the next meal is coming from, but your life is also more complex. So other more kind of cognitively complicated issues are now your main issues that you're dealing with. Oh, excuse me, my phone went off. So this is a step of the ladder that humanity haven't taken before, and your problems get more complicated, but maybe with enough self-actualization, or Maslow's top level after that people don't talk about as much, is self-transcendence, which wasn't as useful for teaching marketing and stuff like that, so it isn't used, but Maslow did talk about it. So that if you can still reach that level with this new tool, but that your problems on the way are going to get more complex.
Yeah.
That's just me trying to be academic, because you guys are so academic on this podcast.
No. We keep talking about it as like individual level too. I was just thinking, like, how does this change workspaces or religious environments?
Oh, yeah.
Like,
I mean, it's huge.
It's going to transform entire organizational structures, because do you need like meditation coaches if now you're have a completely new understanding of your place in the universe or in time? Or do you need more of them because it's hard to deal with?
Yeah, and I would be like, I'm only going to go to a meditation coach who can speak heptapod B, because like if you can't, what are you doing?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like if you don't have that level, because it is, in a way, it's a form of enlightenment, but it could go the opposite. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I did have in my notes for this segment a few sentences from the original story where she says, knowledge of the future was incompatible with free will. What made it possible for me to exercise freedom of choice also made it impossible for me to know the future. Conversely, now that I know the future, I would never act contrary to that future, including telling others what I know. Those who know the future don't talk about it. Those who read the Book of Ages never admit to it.
Wow.
Which is an interesting tone, sort of, since the big problem she has in the future is that she tells Ian, or tells Gary in the story, and he leaves her because he doesn't want to he can't deal with that. He doesn't understand the language like she does.
I wonder if you'd have these factions of people too, like those in society who
Conservatives
choose
that
to
reject
embrace
it.
this way of thinking, and those who choose to reject it.
And like the next generation's like, no, we're not going through all that. We're done. They burn all the heptapod B books.
Yeah.
And then it's like you're on Bumble or whatever dating site, and you're like, no heptapod. Choose not to know.
Yeah.
Seeking other heptapod-minded.
Well, the ones who know heptapod B would know not to go out with you because they know how that date's already going to go.
Unless they knew that they did go out with you.
Yeah, they know they're going to go out with you and it's going to go horribly, but they have to do it anyway so that they can have that experience.
I think that is most dates now. You're like, this sucks, but
this date will
we
be
have
awful.
to do it. Yeah.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Hi, Joanne.
Okay, pal. Let's get something straight. I don't want to go out with you, and I'm just doing this as a favor to my dad, right?
Now, Joanne, I know you're happy to be
Right.
with me, so we can just go out and have a
So
great...
let's make it a whole lot easier on ourselves, shall we? Now, first we would have gone to dinner. That's $10 a piece. Unless you're a cheapskate. but I'm willing to give you the benefit of the doubt.
Thanks.
I would have ordered double desserts. That's $22 altogether. Tax and tip, $25. Making it a grand total of $26.37, half of which is approximately $13.67. Now, why don't you just give me that $13.67 and we'll call it a night?
Did you take checks?
Oh, sure.
Going on then, Louise tells Weber, if you learn it, when you really learn it, you begin to perceive time the way that they do. So you can see what's to come. But time, it isn't the same for them. It's nonlinear. Weber, whether he's listening or not, says, look, we did our best, but it wasn't enough. The captain will load you up. You're lifting off in 5 minutes. Ian and Louise, it was an honor to work with you. Good luck. And he walks away. Weber's out.
Weber is like, Weber's like, I'm not, if this is going sci-fi, I'm not there. You know what I mean? This is too highfalutin.
Well,
when it was just aliens.
We saw that
I
he didn't
okay
go
with
in the
it.
room with the aliens starting like with after their first session. He was never in there again.
Interesting. Yeah.
He just watched on the computers. He's been staying a step back the whole time.
This brings me to one of the threads you've been talking about in previous episodes is kind of the tropes of alien invasion movies and how they're played out here. The first time I heard somebody say that, I kind of, reacted to it a bit. I was like, no, this isn't like that. And then, all the tropes were kind of laid out and pointed out. I am a little genre blind. I get so involved in the world of a movie that I don't really kind of see the strings and I don't kind of really think in genre terms until I'm, breaking things down 1 minute at a time, for example. But I do think this movie does a good job of masking the genre because the kind of mise en scène and the very kind of handsome, deliberate, poetic filmmaking, all the visual presentation puts you in a different mental space and with a different set of expectations. So you're not kind of drawn into the genre. It's not doing all of the kind of Roland Emmerich beats and bringing you along on this story. It's much more kind of fancy and French Canadian. Yeah. But for me, that's one step of masking the genre. And the other is that while it uses these same archetypes of the CIA guy who is concerned with national security over all else, and the military guy who has a chain of command to deal with and who is like, the military guy in the tradition of these movies would be the blow them to kingdom come and ask questions later kind of thing. And so what this movie does, rather than making these straw men, it kind of gives them steel man, makes them steel men and really bolsters their points of view. So that as an audience member, I'm kind of like, well, he's kind of got a point. Rather than we love to hate these, like, boo, they're getting in the way of the heroes doing their job. We're meant to hate them. It's like even the CIA guy. You said in a previous episode, Robert, that the problem isn't that he's thinking like this. The problem is that he's got the power to act on his perception of it. And so when I watch this, even though I don't agree with him, I'm kind of like, well, I'm glad somebody's thinking that way. Strategically,
someone needs to say these things.
Exactly. And the same with practicalities brought up by Forrest Whitaker's character. So to me, that does enough to throw me off the scent of the genre. And I'm going with it and thinking this is a high-minded drama, But I suppose the kind of gold standard in my mind for films that work that way, that show you conflict without making comic book bad guys, is Princess Mononoke, the Ghibli Miyazaki film, which is an amazing study in like multilateral vested interests all competing and awful chaos and awful evil things are done. There's no Machiavellian mastermind behind it. It's just chaos caused by people thoughtlessly pursuing their own goals. This film isn't at that level of that, but it's got a little pinch of that. You know what I mean? It's like we're giving the perspective of these antagonists enough credence, more credence than they would usually be given in this genre.
Yeah. And in a way, they're barely even antagonists. There's no villain in this film.
Yeah.
The people have their different perspectives, and the people with power can be dangerous because they can do things like Shang. But Louise has her own weapon, as the heptapods have told us, and told her. She just has to figure out how to use it, which she's about to. And it's a great line here because we get Ian saying, hey, Colonel, and he can't get Weber, so he turns to go find someone, says, I'm going to find out where we're going. And we get a very on-the-nose line from Hannah when we get a shot of Louise in bed and it's blurry and Hannah says, "Wake up, Mommy." And so she's basically telling Louise, or the movie is telling Louise, wake up and do something because you're the only one who can. That's when we cut forward 18 months, we'll find out from the dialogue, to a gala of some sort. The filming location is the Salle Wilfrid Pelletier at the Place des Arts in Montreal, named for Joseph Louis Wilfrid Pelletier, the Montreal Symphony Orchestra's first artistic director and conductor from 1935 to 41. On the wall, we see flags from countries, US, China, Denmark, Japan, something we can't see because Louise is in the way, and then there's a larger flag with the logogram for Earth in the center of this line of flags.
I didn't know it was a logogram for Earth, but I got a real chill when I see that logogram flag. I assumed it meant heptapod, and that would seem more appropriate because it's in among the flags of the Earth. But just seeing it there gave a really nice sense of reality to the whole thing. And because we're pushing forward in the timeline to a part of the timeline we wouldn't normally see in this type of movie, I just love that, the kind of world building of it. To see that flag, I'm a bit disappointed that it says Earth, though. It should say their planet, or it should say their species, you know?
Well, Earth is, although it's also sideways, but the logograms could be read any direction. That's the point.
Of course.
But it being Earth, it feels like this is like, I don't know what event this is supposed to be, but this is maybe what the UN has adopted, or some new organization that's replaced the UN. And so they've chosen this as the symbol for all of Earth in some united form where they can hang out and talk.
Yeah.
Including the general who almost set us all to war. So then Louise turns to Shang saying, "Dr. Banks, a pleasure." And she says, "General Shang, the pleasure is mine, really." He says, "Your president said he was honored to host me at the celebration." "Yeah, but I confess the only reason why I'm here is to meet you in person." "Me? Well, I'm flattered. Thank you." Shang says, "Now 18 months ago you did something remarkable, something not even my superior has done." Louise says, "And what's that?" And Shang gets cut off before he gets to say anything, so we don't know.
The end was such a
We don't
nice
know.
cliffhanger.
We'll find out next week.
Yeah, this scene is fascinating on subsequent viewing because why doesn't she know? Like, she's having the Louise in the future time frame seems to be having difficulty getting her memories from the past, rather than the future. I guess the whole thing just becomes confusing. Like it's working dramatically. That's why it's there, but it's odd when you think about it.
It's like if you had to think of a conversation you had with someone 18 months ago, and you could only think of it in chronological order and hear the whole conversation. You couldn't remember, like, how did it end? You had to go through it to remember it.
Weird.
It's very strange.
Which is how she's remembering this. But I guess since she's new to this, that's the only way she can do it. Plus, it's the only way they can present it to us.
Yeah. Is it a little bit of artistic license where this is not how that conversation will actually play out? This is the Louise that we see in the gala event is actually just a representation of what Louise is thinking in that moment. And that when that gala event will actually happen, the words will maybe be the same, but she won't have like a puzzled look on her face. She'll be going like, "Oh, me?" You know what I mean?
Well, yeah,
But
I think it's the puzzled look that's the problem there.
Yeah.
Because saying, "and what's that?" could just be her being polite.
Exactly. Or even coy, playfully, because we both have this knowledge that this is what we're going to say, and this is how this conversation will go.
So is that just a minor movie error?
Yeah, either a directing or acting choice.
Yeah, I think it's a license more than an error. I'm sure they meant to do it that way. You know what I mean?
Right, because if we're taking everything literally, as it were, this scene should be exactly what's going to happen.
It should,
because that's how it works.
Yeah.
But I think, in a sense, we're seeing her reacting in the present, even though she's in the scene in the future.
Yeah. Yeah.
We almost could have cut away to like her in the present looking confused because she doesn't remember this yet.
Yeah, or I mean, a cheesy way to do it would be to have her present self standing invisibly in the room, Scrooge style,
or like reverse shot is him at the gala, her in the present, having this conversation.
Yeah, that would actually work
because then the visual
wouldn't be as cheesy as my one.
Might be confusing because she's out in a field, a bunch of people, and they'd be like, "Who's she talking to?" But
yeah,
that's why it's hard to present this because it's an unusual situation.
My rule is, if I didn't notice it on my first viewing, it's all just fun after that.
That's good policy.
Yeah.
So then the segment is over. Anything else on the segment or the movie as a whole?
Yeah, I had a couple of notes here. This just overall, these minutes are great minutes because this is the inflection point. This is when the puzzle aspect is unfolding, and the movie does that kind of trick of spoon feeding you but making you think you're figuring it all out and you're being really clever. It's the same. It's what a good puzzle game does or a good whodunit novel does. It absolutely holds your hand, and when you watch it again you're just like, oh yeah, this is just all laid out for me. But when I first saw it I was like, I'm a genius unlocking this secret, this is amazing. And I love that feeling, and I know, it's like a magic trick. You're being tricked. You know what I mean? But you go with it. And this movie is a big kind of, my wife and I really enjoy watching it together. And she was really jealous when she could hear me watching it while she was, doing boring office work. And, we love the kind of puzzle aspect of this. And just having these moments play out with moments of pathos mixed in with the kind of brain tickling is what's really special about how it's executed in this movie, because you've got this wonderful child actor who, maybe it's just my, now that I'm a dad, my dad hormones talking about, she's the best little girl, she's amazing. But I just really think she does a fantastic job. And the conversation that in the moments just before our minute starts is so painful but so beautiful, that like she's telling her daughter, she's telling Hannah what's going on without telling her what's going on. And so my emotional state at the beginning of this minute is like just so primed for this revelation, and just the delicate balance of the beats of this drama about a family and the beats of this kind of intellectual puzzle, that the sci-fi aspect is just beautifully executed in these 5 minutes.
So if the listeners want to hear more from you, where will they be able to do so? And when?
Well, I'm my schedule is to start on the 31st of May, and now I've said that on a podcast, so I'm going to be held to it. So if you want to go to malkovichminute.net, I didn't make people type in Malkovich twice and minute twice for the URL, but if you want to go to malkovichminute.net and just get yourself on the mailing list, you'll be informed of when it comes out. There's just a contact form there, and if by the time you hear this, if there is a feed to be subscribed to, you'll find it there as well.
And if you want to hear us talk about some other Charlie Kaufman stuff, we discussed Synecdoche, New York on Cock and Bull Minute. That show's over now, but those episodes are out there. It was, 4 episodes conversation?
Yeah, that was a nice long conversation.
And we talked about, I'm thinking of ending things.
Yeah.
And we, or at least me, I don't know if you're going to be a regular co-host, but we'll be doing Eternal Sunshine starting later this year.
Did I just get demoted and I didn't know? Just
no.
He's giving you an out. He's giving you the choice.
He's giving you the option of not having to be in every episode.
Thank you.
You have first refusal.
Yeah.
Because, Charlie Kaufman is one of my favorites. So looking forward to Malkovich Minute as well.
I'm, very looking forward to, very much looking forward to sinking my teeth into future installments as well. And I think my plan is to do Being John Malkovich and Adaptation, at least, and those two films lock together in a really gratifying way, so you couldn't do one without the other. And as for what film I would do after that, I don't know, or I might do some other kind of podcast altogether. But that's, if it's kind of finish what you started in the kind of the rules from the makers, Pete and Alex, then I would see Being John Malkovich and Adaptation as the duology that needs to be kind of complete, which obviously narratively they're not, but there's so many interesting links between the two that I kind of think they're companion pieces,
And you didn't call your show like Kaufman Minute, so you don't have to do all of them.
Yeah. I thought about broadening it, but then I just giggled so much when I thought of Malkovich Minute, and how stupid it is, and how much it matches the kind of tone of it. I was like, I can't resist that.
Yeah, that just happened.
Thank you for listening.
Follow the show on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at 5 Minute Arrival.
Or go to lemmingdrops.com for links.
I used to think this was the beginning of your story.